And that is what self-care is all about.
The 5th Kenya International Industrial Expo is happening at the Sarit Expo Center from 3rd to 5th November 2022. Over 100 Chinese manufacturers will participate with building materials, engineering machinery, vehicles and auto parts, consumer goods and much more. Come network as we boost Kenya's manufacturing capacity. Entry is free.
Ni nini mbaya na nyinyi? Kwa nini mnanitafuta? Mimi tutakosana na nyinyi, sitaki hiyo mchezo. Kwani mko wapi? Mnafanya nini hapo? Ati muna watch World Cup? Ngojea kidogo. Hata sitaki kukasirika tena. Jamani, mafansi wangu, hamjambo. Mimi ni Mama Kayaiwa Vitimbi. Ningependa tu kuwaelezea kwamba KBC Channel 1 peke yake ndio itaonyesha World Cup. Yangu ni kuambia watazamaji wote msikose kuwatch World Cup katika KBC Channel 1. Asanteni sana na kwaherini. Basi endeleeni kuangalia. Yes.
It's a dangerous venture. Is it really worth the risk?
The longer that they continue to exist, the more danger they can cause. What I want all I want, all that I've ever wanted is you.
I'm the daughter of Green Hills King, Betsy. I hid it from all of you at Skywall. I'm awfully sorry.
Are you really a woman?
I swear. I have to say, he's done a lot for me.
Auntie, you're blushing.
I'm your auntie. Don't you dare tease me.
Well, I was just wondering if this lantern is as powerful as they say it is.
I wouldn't underestimate it. Right. After I'm done with it, my master will be revived.
It's the first day of November, the year of the Lord 2022. 14 days to go, or rather 19 days to go to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Join us, of course, for an exhilarating experience from the world's greatest soccer extravaganza from the 20th of November all the way to the 18th of December. World Cup. Eco KBC. Good evening. My name is Mboya. Top in this live broadcast.
This morning, we have made additional 2 billion shillings available for the intervention on purchase of food under that program, out of which 240 million shillings will be made available to Red Cross.
Responding to the distressed, government releases another 2 billion shillings for drought mitigation. The endless troubles of Meru. County Assembly rejects Governor Kawira Mwangaza's nominees in renewed supremacy battle. And looking to the future, ICT and digital economy, Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo promises to revitalize operations at KBC. Susan Thuko is in charge of our sign language docket, our socials at KBC, Channel 1, my Twitter handle, at Mboya24. Let's go to our top story now. And government has set aside an extra 2 billion shillings to tackle famine in the country. Speaking at State House, Nairobi, where he was installed as a patron of the Kenya Red Cross Society, President William Ruto appealed to organizations to incorporate climate change in its scope of activities and mobilize communities on government's tree planting program. Nancy Okware opens our coverage with that report.
President William Ruto was on Tuesday installed as the patron of the Kenya Red Cross Society at State House, Nairobi.
I humbly accept your invitation to serve as the patron of the Kenya Red Cross. And I want you to know that I am aware of the magnitude of this role and proud to be associated with you.
We have 240,000 members and volunteers. 80% of them are young people. So they are really our backbone in terms of our human resource, and they are the ones who are always out there.
It is here that the head of state announced that the government had made available an extra 2 billion shillings in addition to the 3.2 billion shillings given earlier to tackle famine in the country.
We have already deployed 300 million worth of food to 10 most affected ASAL counties. Because the situation is both urgent and the situation is also dire, we have agreed that additionally to the 3.2 billion shillings government already made available, we are making again this morning an additional 2 billion shillings to support this food distribution mechanism.
The president appealing to the Kenya Red Cross to incorporate climate change in its range of activities as part of mitigating the impact of climate change.
The climate change has even affected the tea production. And what they are saying is in the next 10 years, Nandi County has been put to be among the red flag because of the issues of climate change.
The president saying that effective and transformative collaboration was key in the wake of unprecedented wave of challenges.
We are in the grip of the worst drought in 40 years. We have a lot of work to do in mitigating its effects, doing everything we can to ensure no life is lost and building resilience in our communities.
The head of state urged the Kenya Red Cross Society to use its capacity to mobilize communities to complement the government's tree planting program.
I request you to use your existing capacity to mobilize communities and volunteers to complement our tree planting program. It is our aim to plant 5 billion trees in the next 5 years.
Nancy Okware, Prime Edition.
Now, the Kerio Valley Development Authority has constructed dams and water ponds in the North Rift region to boost water harvesting as a way of mitigating effects of drought. Residents in the region have welcomed the intervention, saying it will end the fight for water resources between humans on one side and wildlife on the other. Here is that report.
2 water ponds and subsurface dams have been constructed in the North Rift region to serve residents and their livestock.
Drought mambo ya ukame imesiti kwa taifa letu la Kenya, na tutataka sisi wote tuungane mkono ili kupikana, ili tutatue na kusaidia wananchi wetu.
Hata alikuwa tunaenda mpaka usiku kuchota maji, na yeye kwingine hawezani kuchota maji, akina mama wazee. Ile mama alikuwa na watoto wadogo, hata alikuwa woni mwenye alikuwa anawashia watoto, lakini tulikuwa tunashukuru sana.
Kerio Valley Development Authority Managing Director Sami Naporos observed 50 million shillings has been set aside for the project in Samburu County, adding that the authority has embarked on formulating long-term drought mitigation measures.
Na haya maji yanapopatikana yataenda kwa kiwango kikubwa kuhakikisha kwamba kuna lishe bora na kiu itapungua katika eneo hili.
This, as the weather forecast indicates that most parts of the country are likely to have a late onset and early cessation of rainfall. Highland east of the Rift Valley counties, including Nairobi area, onset dates are 4th week of October to 1st week of November, and cessation dates are 3rd to 4th week of December this year. In the southeast lowlands counties, onset dates are 1st to 2nd week of November, while the cessation dates is the 3rd to 4th week of December this year. For the coastal counties, the rainfall is expected between the 3rd to 4th week of November and 3rd to 4th week of December this year. In the northwestern counties and northeastern counties, the onset and the cessation dates of rain are undefined. Jacqueline Masharia for Prime Edition.
Our Information, Communication Technology and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo has promised to help the state broadcaster Kenya Broadcasting Corporation to improve its infrastructure as well as content generation to match world-class trends. Addressing staff of the corporation on his maiden tour since being appointed cabinet secretary, Owalo pledged to provide every required support to the corporation and to allow the corporation to execute its mandate fully. Early this year, held a closed-door meeting with the corporation's board to acquaint himself with the operations at KBC.
The ICT and Digital Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo Tuesday was at the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation offices to deliberate with the KBC board and senior management on mechanisms to scale up KBC as a leading broadcaster. The CS committing to support the state broadcaster match its peers internationally.
KBC must be repositioned so that it gets back to being the market leader. Yes. There is no justification in KBC with the brand that it has, the infrastructure that it has at its disposal, playing second fiddle to new entrants in the market.
The CS said the ministry will work with KBC to enhance performance through revived content, improved infrastructure, and look into the pay structure of the staff.
That apart from the job evaluation exercise which is undertaken by SRC, we as KBC will also undertake our own internal job evaluation so that we are able to see how we are performing with respect to the salary and benefits levels in comparison to other comparators in the marketplace.
KBC's acting managing director Samuel Maina, who was the host, hailed the cabinet secretary for seeing fit to visit the institution and engage with staff.
Sasa, the love for KBC starts with our captain, who is the CS, okay? Na mambo itafanyika hapa. Hapa mambo itafanyika. So all of you, please prepare for takeoff. I told you hii ndege iko kwa nini? Kwa runway, ready for takeoff. Now the pilot has been appointed. Sasa inatoka runway iende wapi? And we achieve the cruising speed.
The KBC board chairperson Benjamin Maingi said it was encouraging that the CS is passionate to ensure the state broadcaster adopts international best practices in broadcasting.
It is not every other day that a cabinet minister humbles himself to this level and comes and meets the board and all the staff. So it's quite a privilege, and it talks volumes on where we are heading. Openness and transparency.
The staff pleading with the CS to confirm the acting managing director, Samuel Maina, who has been able to achieve much in a short period he has been at the helm.
As and when anything comes to my attention with respect to management of KBC, I'll deal with it based on what is required of my office. And consider me part and parcel of this family.
KBC has revamped news and programming content both in radio, TV and digital space to match the taste of its audience and the dynamic market. The national broadcaster continues to execute its mandate. Part of this is bringing you unmatched coverage of events as they unfold. For instance, starting 20th of this month, KBC Channel 1 will bring you live coverage from Qatar, which will be airing through to December 18th. You know what it is. KBC, your true sports partner, will broadcast 28 matches live from Qatar. Irene Mchuma Odim, the Prime Edition.
That's right. Many thanks indeed, Irene, for that report. Now, the rift between Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza and the ward representatives continues to widen after the Assembly rejected 7 of her nominees to the executive. In a new twist to the escalation of the wars, the entire Assembly unanimously agreed to adopt the report by appointment committee that cited lack of relevant work experience in rejecting the 7. JJ Kioria puts that story into perspective.
The war between Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza and the 69-member County Assembly is far from over. From the clashes witnessed during Mwangaza's State of the County address 2 weeks ago, the MCAs have also written to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, citing the governor for alleged nepotism in the running of the affairs of her office.
Will as many as of a similar opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? Now the ayes have it and the motion is passed.
Tuesday, the war hit fever pitch after the Assembly unanimously adopted a report of the Appointments Committee that rejected 7 members Governor Mwangaza had appointed to be in her cabinet.
Based on the foregoing observations and conclusions and pursuant to the provisions of Section 9, Subsection 2 of the Public Appointments Act 2017, the committee draws the following recommendations. 1. That this Honorable Assembly rejects the nomination of Mr. George Gikunda Mongania, the nominee for the position of CECM in charge of the Department of Health Services.
Out of the 10 CECs vetted a week ago, Lands, Physical Planning and Urban Development nominee Japheth Dumba, Youth, Sports, Gender and Social Development nominee Kasti Misheni, her Health Services counterpart Dr. George Gikunda Mungania, Water, Irrigation and Climate nominee Bishop Kiambi Atheru, Agriculture, Fisheries and Veterinary nominee Caroline Kaberia, Roads and Energy nominee James Mudomi, Esther Kareminjeru of Trade Cooperatives and Tourism were all rejected. The committee citing lack of relevant work experience in batting the 7.
Is this exercise that we did as a committee of appointment where I was privileged to serve, and I can say without any fear of contradiction that we were guided by meritocracy and we vowed never to entertain a kakistocracy.
The few who have not made it, they live to fight another day, and Mr. Speaker, I urge the Honorable Governor Kawira Mwangaza to expeditiously go and come up with another list. Let her bring the list to this Honorable House, and the Speaker will look at the list with the nominees, and the Speaker will go ahead and vet.
The committee, however, approved Public Service, Legal Affairs and Services nominee Dixon Kanata, Education, Science and Culture nominee Duranera Joseph, and Finance nominee Monica Cathono. The widening cracks come amidst reports that Governor Mwangaza has convened a reconciliation meeting on Thursday with the MCAs, with Meru Senator and area members of Parliament expected to attend as mediators. John Jacob Curia, Prime Edition.
Well, of course, that's a story that we'll make sure we have our pulse on. It's developing pretty fast. And Wairimo Njenga is on the other side, smiling in the style of a Mai Pawile. Well, it's not time for business, but Wairimo wants to walk us through profiles of some of the cabinet secretaries who have taken office.
Yes, Tom. Yes, and as you very well know, on the 26th of October this year, the President William Ruto did appoint 22 cabinet secretaries, and we'll be looking at their profile. And we will start with our very own, that is the CS Energy Full Petroleum, that is Davis Chilchil, rather, who was born in 1960. He has a Master's of Business Administration in International Business University of London. He's a senior manager. He was a senior manager rather at Telkom Kenya and an IT director at Interim Independent Electoral Commission. Now, looking at that is Davis Chilchil. Now let's go to the next. We have a CS Mining for Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. That is Salim Vruya, who was born in 1970 at Kadzandani village in Kwale County. And also he has a degree in agribusiness management from Egerton University and a master's degree in participation, power and social change from the Institute of Development Studies in England. Looking at the next cabinet secretary, we have the CS for Labor and Social Protection. That is Florence Bore. Now, she was born in 1972. She attended St. Patrick's Primary School and later joined Kipsigis Girls High School. She has a diploma in teaching from Kagumo Teaching Training College. And also in 2013, that is when she did do her Bachelor of Education at Moi University. Now, looking at the next cabinet secretary, we have CS, that is the cabinet secretary for Tourism, Wildlife and National Heritage. That is Penina Malonza. Now, she was born in 1974 in Kitui, and she has a Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology, that is of Anthropology at the University of Nairobi, and a Master's of Arts for Project Management and Planning from the University of Nairobi. Now, looking at the next cabinet secretary, we have, let's now go back to the other slide as we look at other cabinet secretaries. Remember, we have 22 cabinet secretaries who will be looking at their profile maybe after we take this short commercial break. And then Tom will be bringing you the latest from the counties as well as from the corridors of justice. That is later on coming to you.
Kupata Zaburi 18 mstari wa pili, dial *811 *817 hash. Mwenyezi Mungu ni mwamba wangu, ngome yangu na mkombozi wangu. Mungu wangu, mwamba wangu ninayemkimbilia ninapohitaji kuwa salama. Zaburi 18 mstari wa pili. Zaburi 18 mstari wa pili, dial *811 *817 hash. *811 *817 hash.
Welcome back. Our socials at KBC Channel 1, my Twitter handle at Mboya24. Now, Speaker of the National Assembly Moses Wetangula says Parliament will play its legislative and oversight role to the executive for the benefit of all Kenyans. He made these remarks during an interview with KBC Radio Taifa. Wetangula noted that watchdog committees such as the Public Investments Committee have been split to ensure timely oversight of utilization of public resources by government institutions. Wetangula at the same time says that the drought situation will be given priority in the supplementary budget set to be tabled before the House.
Into government investments and use of taxpayers' money by Parliament will now be efficient and timely. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, says the division of Public Investments Committee into 3 watchdog committees will seal oversight loopholes that previously existed.
Kamati moja kwa mwaka moja ikishughulika na mambo ya plenary ya bunge na kamati. Kuna nafasi za wabunge kwenda safari za nje au safari za nje ya Nairobi kwenda kufanya kazi. Ilionelewa ya kwamba kamati moja haiwezi kushughulika na investments za serikali at the central government, waende kwa parastatals, waende kwa taasisi zingine, ndiyo ikavunjwa mara 3.
In an interview with KBC Radio Taifa, Wetangula said Parliament will exercise its independence to deliver to Kenyans. Commenting on the drought situation affecting millions of Kenyans, the National Assembly Speaker said,
pale ninapokaa kama speaker, nitahakikisha ya kwamba bunge letu linapitisha hoja na mipangilio inayoletwa na serikali kuhakikisha ya kwamba Wakenya ambao wanaathirika na ukosefu wa maji na chakula wana uwezo wa kusaidiwa na serikali na taasisi ambazo zinahusika. Unajua kikatiba, serikali haiwezi kutumia pesa bila kuja kupata idhini ya bunge. So wakileta supplementary budget, hata nitaweka kando kila kitu.
According to Wetangula, 2 legislators have already shown interest in moving a motion that seeks to entrench the Constituency Development Fund and the Hustler Fund into the Constitution.
So this afternoon, I'm giving them the first opportunity under this standing order. Ili kueleza bunge ni sheria gani wanataka kubadilisha, kipengee gani cha bunge wanataka kubadilisha, ni nini wanataka kuleta katika katiba, na wataweza namna gani ku ring fence CDF na other special funds kama ile affirmative action, hata hii Hustler Fund nafikiri nimeona imewekwa katika huu mswada.
The former Bungoma senator has pledged to throw his support behind the Ford Kenya candidate for the Bungoma senatorial by-election that also has a United Democratic Alliance Party candidate. Kamchimenza for Prime Edition.
Now, a section of education stakeholders are calling for abolishment of decolonization of teachers and retaining of boarding schools, even as the government seeks to fully implement the competency-based curricula. The calls were made on the first day of public hearings convened by the Presidential Working Party on education reforms. Ruth Mboya reports.
Day 1 of the public engagement by the Presidential Working Party on education reforms saw a beehive of activities across the country. The Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms chairperson Raphael Munavu led a section of the committee in pitching tent at Lodwar Boys High School in Turkana, where they collected views from teachers and parents.
There are issues that are being raised, and they are very important ones to listen to, and we are being requested to consider issues of marginalization, issues of, for example, safety of our children, and also feeding programs, especially in seasons of drought.
To ask the government to give adequate funding to CBC programs. CBC is good, it's a well-thought idea, it makes children to participate in learning practically.
But now that this change has already occurred, we still need to look at this critically and see whether the students and the learners are ready for it.
In Busia County, a section of the stakeholders proposed that the junior secondary schools should be domiciled in primary schools based on the argument of the age of the learners, among other recommendations.
Issue of funding, the expense, the issue of training, preparation, those are some of the main highlight issues that I would like maybe just to throw to this audience.
But the government should consider the issue of teaching sciences so that we have laboratories in primary, because that is a major challenge that will affect
which help an individual and community.
In Migori County, education stakeholders told the team led by Professor Colin Sodote to consider setting aside more days for deliberations.
We've had conversations around the costs of CBC, a huge issue that was raised with us. We have had submissions and suggestions about the transition. We have had submissions about teacher preparedness. We've had submissions about parental involvement. Members of the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms also collected views in Nyandarua, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Marsabit, Mandera, and Samburu counties. On Thursday, November 3rd, 2022, the committee will hold public hearings in Mombasa, Makueni, Nyeri, Elgeyo Marakwet, Bungoma, Nyamira, and Homa Bay counties. The public engagement will run until Friday, November 11, 2022. Ruth Wamboy for Prime Edition.
Okay, Teachers Service Commission is set to appear before the National Assembly Education Committee over delayed promotion of teachers. Speaking after being elected as chairperson of the Education Committee, Tinderet Member of Parliament Julius Mele said that the committee's top agenda will be to address the welfare of teachers, particularly promotions. Kevin Washira is on that story.
Departmental committees of National Assembly elected their respective leadership through consensus, with each chairperson stipulating key agendas for his committee. Education Committee members unanimously elected Tinderet MP Julius Mele, and he will be deputized by Malava MP Malulu Ijendi. Speaking after the election, the chairperson indicated the committee will be inviting Teachers Service Commission over the delayed promotion of teachers.
That is the question that we want to ask the TSC actually to appear before us. They have money and the teachers are not being promoted. And I think we'll ask the commissioners and the Teacher Service Commission to immediately appear before this committee and tell us why are teachers not being promoted yet there is money.
Information and Communication Committee similarly elected Dagoretti South MP John Kerry and Bomachoge Chache MP Alpha Miruka as chairperson and vice chairperson respectively. Kerry, who served in the committee during the last parliament, committed to ensure the committee sponsors legislative proposals to unlock the potential in digital economy.
The committee in the 12th parliament was able to pass not less than 4 very critical laws in the last parliament. We believe we shall be able to do much better.
Mola MP Vincent Musyoka, assisted by Narok East MP Ken Aramat, will lead the Energy Committee as it endeavors to ensure the cost of energy is lowered.
The issue of the cost of energy is not by mere production and also the taxes. The issue we are facing with the cost of energy is because we have allowed cartels who produce thermal power, which is extremely expensive, to continue operating in the name of some contracts that were signed long before that we are not able to vacate.
Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee elected Belgut MP Nelson Koech as chair and Mandera North MP retired Major Bashir Abdullahi as deputy. The duo committing to look into eradicating corruption in recruitment of Kenya Defence Forces as a matter of priority.
How are we going to deal with the challenge of corruption, especially on recruitment of officers? It is something that we'll take up as the leadership of the committee with the Ministry of Defense.
I was a recruiting officer before. I know what it takes. But you understand there's a lot of competition. Everybody wants to be first. But I can assure you these things will improve.
Other committees that elected chairpersons include National Administration and Internal Affairs Committee, Finance Committee, and Sports Committee, among others. Yishok Washira, Prime Edition.
Samuel Josephat Joroge is the new clerk of the National Assembly after the House Tuesday approved his appointment by the Parliamentary Service Commission. Njoroge's appointment was endorsed by 162 members against 94 in a voting exercise that saw the National Assembly divided really over his suitability to take office. Njoroge, the immediate former Director, Legislative and Procedural Services, becomes the 7th Clerk of the National Assembly, and he also succeeds Michael Sailai, who retired on the 31st of July 2022. Deputy Clerk Sarah Kioko has been holding the position in an acting capacity since the month of August 2022. Kamche Meza reports.
Next, Honorable Kainan.
A special motion moved by Eldas, Member of Parliament Adan Kainan, representing the Parliamentary Service Commission, and seconded by his Ainapkoi counterpart Samuel Chepkonga, to have the House approve the appointment of Samuel Josephat Njoroge as Clerk of the National Assembly, elicited varied opinions, leaving the House divided.
This House approves the appointment of Mr. Samuel Njoroge as the Clerk of the National Assembly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, order. This is a motion that is squarely in your hands. You don't defeat or approve a motion by speaking or shouting loudly.
Acclamation did not settle the matter, leading members to the ballot, where Njoroge's fate was sealed in the first round.
Honorable Speaker, the results of the voting on the special motion on appointment of the Clerk of the National Assembly results are as follows. The ayes 162, the nays 94.
The ayes have it.
Following his appointment, the 43-year-old Samuel Josephat Njoroge will now assume office as the 7th Clerk of the National Assembly, succeeding Michael Sailai. The Parliamentary Service Commission considered 48 applications. 4 candidates were shortlisted for the position, namely Deputy Clerk of the National Assembly Sarah Kioko, who was holding the clerk position in an acting capacity, Samuel Josephat Njoroge, Mohamed Ali Mohamed, and Eunice Wanjiku Gishangi. Njoroge, who was serving as the acting Deputy Clerk of the National Assembly, has 19 years' experience as a parliamentary officer, having been employed in 2003 as a 3rd Clerk Assistant. Kamche Menza for Prime Edition.
Now, police in Kakamega are investigating an incident where a middle-aged man was allegedly shot dead by a criminal gang. Hamisi Police Boss Ruth Lagat says 30-year-old Hilary Amalemba was killed by an armed gang while at his shop, that gang making away with 150,000 shillings and an unknown value of gold. Timothy, that's right. Kipnusu. He's our man on Crime Watch tonight.
Hilary Amalemba was allegedly shot dead while in his shop by a gang which made away with 150,000 shillings and a gold of unknown value.
Polisi ilikuja kurokota tu na ikaenda. Na walirokota hapo kitu. Ile kitu makandi ya risasi. Na nisikizia OCS wa Selimi akasema hii risasi hii ilitokana, hii marisasi ya serikali tulipeleka headquarter Chana kwa Kakamega kwa ofisi kuu.
Locals saying insecurity situation in Hamisi constituency is on the rise, with areas such as Kaimosi, Cheptulu, Makuchi and Shaviringa the most affected.
Mtusaidie. Mapolisi wetu wanataka tu mtu akipita na pombe wanazichukua. Lakini sisi wamama na vijana wengine wanasema sisi tumekaa Kenya kani?
Hatuwezi kuwa na polisi 12 Cheptulu kwa population kama hiyo.
Langat says the CCTV cameras captured the gang 5 days ago in a robbery mission where they made away with more than 1.5 million shillings.
Alikuwa anahudumia watu, hako na duka ya kawaida. Akiwa anaendelea kuhudumia watu, ndio watu wawili waliingia ndani. Na walipoingia, mmoja akakaa kwa mlango. Mwingine akaingia akapiga teke ile mlango ya duka ndani. Na alipoingia tu alishika jamaa, akaroselia down na akamuitisha pesa ila ako nazo.
Security imekuwa chini sana, watu wamekuwa kutibia na mabunduki. So we urge the government at least ifanye mpango na
deployment officers, at least on the site.
The locals are now living in fear and want the government to intervene and deal with the gang ruthlessly.
Tuko na issues nyingi touching on security, touching on banditry, and so on. This incident is not an isolated incident. We have had similar incidents in several areas.
Sisi tunaenda kupiga firimbi na tunataka kila mtu atoke so that hata Mheshimiwa Rais Ruto ajue hii maneno, na tunataka tuambie Mheshimiwa waziri mpya Kizure Kindiki.
Timothy Kipnusu for Prime Edition.
The world's biggest sporting event is here with us. The FIFA World Cup 2022 in Qatar. KBC Television will air live 28 selected matches, while radio will beam live all the 64 matches. We would like to bring to the attention of the public that KBC is the only station that has exclusive 2022 FIFA World Cup free-to-air FTA broadcast rights for both TV and radio in the Kenya territory, and no other media outlet. Therefore, catch all the FIFA World Cup action live and exclusive on KBC TV and radio. KBC is indeed your true sports partner.
Let's now focus on the world of business. Now, the government is creating a conducive environment for the textile subsector to increase jobs from the current 50,000 to 5 million within 5 years. This is part of plans by Trade and Investment Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria to ultimately ban importation of mitumba.
Plans to ban mitumba importation have been on the cards severally, but have faced stiff opposition from critics who believe Kenya does not have the capacity to meet demand for apparel and that the second-hand clothes are affordable to a majority of Kenyans. Trade and Investment Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria has announced another attempt to ban mitumba after growing the textile industry to levels where Kenya can meet local demand as well as exports and creating 5 million jobs.
Yes, we are going to ban mitumba once we give people an alternative, and we will give people an alternative, and then we will ban mitumba.
Speaking during the opening of the Changamka Shopping Festival in Nairobi, Kuria pledged to streamline the issuance of single business permits, facilitate setting up trade agencies and warehouses in 50 countries, and establish common shared facilities in export hubs in every county in efforts to increase export volumes.
So you can start to imagine if we are still a respectable country in terms of export, once we start opening the warehouses and opening our trade agencies, our exports will boom out there.
As manufacturers, we need to ensure that we take up these opportunities, we grow our manufacturing, we become competitive, and then we are able to export so that we reduce our trade deficit gap. We bring in more foreign currency, which is again a big problem for manufacturers right now, and at the same time we are creating jobs and wealth creation.
In addition, he says Kenya will establish export warehouses in countries with the most market potential, starting with pilot facilities in South Africa, Congo and Dubai.
We will work and do everything that we can to assure you and to make sure that the approval process, the licensing processes and other activities that in the past have been seen as hindering business are made easier.
He says the rollout of single business permits will commence from January next year, with Nairobi County running the pilot program. As day one of the Changamka festival kicks off, the manufacturing sector is being encouraged to increase their exports. Hibak Said for Prime Edition.
Thank you, Hibak, for that story. Now, Kenya Airways flights could be disrupted this Wednesday if a standoff between pilots and the management not resolved before then. Kenya Airways CEO Alan Kilavuka says the airline has obtained a court injunction stopping the strike, while pilots insist they will walk out if their grievances are not addressed.
The row has been raging between pilots and Kenya Airways over alleged staff victimization of workers and governance issues at the airline. Pilots insist that if their grievances are not addressed, they will have no option than to go on strike.
We have suffered serious socio-economic situations, especially after the pandemic, and the sacrifices that you have made for this airline. So, kamba imefika mwisho. Now, what we are saying is if we want players who can come, sit, and resolve this issue.
The solutions are here with us. We do not need expertise from Europe, foreigners to come and tell us what we already know is wrong. We have spent billions of shillings, and right now what we need is a homemade solution that is simple and cheap, and it's free.
However, the airline says it has secured orders stopping its workers from going on strike.
Many of our pilots are professionals of high repute. We truly respect them. We don't believe that they will want to enter into an unlawful act. The few that might want to do that should be aware that that is breaking the law. And all I can say is that we will have to defer to our lawyers to advise us on that going forward.
In addition, Kalivuka says the pilots' concerns can only be addressed if the airline's financial position improves.
The other alternative is to hold on until we believe June or July of 2023, when we'll have finished with the other obligations, then we can start the Provident Fund.
We have given proposals to all our unions at their different varied positions that we have given them, but because it's a negotiation, they have not yet come back to us.
Still on aviation matters, the Star Navigation System Group Limited and Flightpath International have launched their in-flight safety monitoring system during their second Aviation Accident Prevention and Airline Performance Optimization Conference. Star Navigation Systems Group Senior Director Hamid Gill has committed to provide integrated aerospace solutions.
We're not only here to tell you about a technology, we want to see you grow from 2 aircraft to 5 to 10, 10 to 20, and we want to help the tourism of Kenya grow. So when public comes from another country, they feel, you know what, air safety is very safe in this country.
With technological development, we have been able to get more data, more knowledge from incident and accident analysis, of where perhaps now we can become more aware, hence have better decision-making skills.
Alan Auko, Prime Edition.
Farmers want the government to fast-track the reintroduction of the 2% levy on coffee sales. The fund is meant to help fund the operations of the coffee research and operationalize the Coffee Board of Kenya. The Kenya Coffee Producers Association Chair Peter Gekonyo has said the revamped Coffee Board and Research Institute will work with various stakeholders to promote the production and marketing of coffee in the country.
Arabica coffee prices continue to plummet as production in the world's largest coffee producer, Brazil, picks up. Coffee farmers are expected to receive reduced earnings in the next few months after record earnings due to decreased production as drought persists and increasing cost of production as farm inputs prices increase. To cushion coffee production from the adverse effects of drought, farmers want the government to reintroduce the 2% levy on coffee sales to support the production of drought-resistant coffee seeds and operationalize the Coffee Board.
They need to support the Coffee Research Institute to be able to develop new varieties that can be able to cope with the changes in the weather, also cope with the challenges with the pests and other diseases, so that then coffee farming becomes attractive, becomes sustainable, and becomes more profitable to the farmers.
The players say there is need to fund the operations of the cash-strapped Coffee Research Institute to ensure the institute produces high-yielding coffee seed variety as the country targets to increase production from the current 40,000 metric tons to 100,000 metric tons annually.
We are calling upon the government to come in, help the Coffee Research Institute to be able to support the farmers with the seedlings, with the seeds, and therefore then the certified nurseries can be able to do the nurseries.
This comes as data from the Nairobi Coffee Exchange shows that coffee earnings in 8 months to August hit 25.5 billion shillings, representing a year-on-year 62% increase. The increased earnings were buoyed by the increased number of bags sold via the auction, which increased from 575.5 thousand bags from 377.2 bags the previous season. Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
Now, the latest from the corporate scene, small and medium enterprises in the coastal region are set to benefit from sensitization forums by Absa Bank Kenya in partnership with the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, aimed at boosting growth. Here are the details of that story and more.
The fishing industry in the coastal region is valued at 300 billion shillings annually, while semi-commercial crops such as coconut, mango, cashew nuts and sugarcane are other huge economic drivers, largely dominated by small to large agribusinesses. To tap into this, Absa Bank is undertaking a tour targeting SMEs in Kwale, Taita Taveta, Mombasa and Kilifi. The Coast Region tour comes in the backdrop of a similar engagement in the Western region, where the bank engaged more than 1,000 SMEs across 5 counties, namely Kisumu, Kisii, Bungoma, Trans Nzoia and Uasin Gishu, to boost capacity.
To us, you are such an important business community because we know SMEs are the ones that drive the economy and even the economy here.
Sisi kama serikali katika mambo ya biashara, sisi hatufanyi biashara, lakini tunasaidia wafanye biashara. Na kusaidia wafanye biashara kwanza, tuna partner na washikadau.
And Kangema constituency has set aside land for the construction of affordable houses. This comes after President William Ruto toured the county and announced plans to build 2,000 units of affordable housing targeting Kangema, Mathioya, Kandara and Maragua constituencies.
But in 2 acres, they are around 0.4, which we want to talk with the people who were allocated. But somehow it was so glaring, somebody being allocated a plot whereby there is a government house for DCI, another house, RAD, where there is a house for OCPD, I think OCS. I think those are glaring. The people should have understood that this is a government RAD.
Finally, KCB Kenya has set aside 250 billion shillings targeting women-led and owned small-medium enterprises across the country within 5 years.
To make it worse, women hold only 10% of registered title deeds in Kenya, which makes it difficult for women-led SMEs to access higher amounts of credit, usually supported by collateral, mainly secured credit.
The facility will enable women entrepreneurs overcome business challenges by providing working capital and other critical non-financial needs to sustain their growth and overall spur socio-economic growth.
Financial inclusion is a major driver of economic development, especially in developing countries. However, access to financial services by individuals and enterprises is still limited across Africa. Gender plays a particularly important role as women are much more financially excluded than men.
Additionally, women entrepreneurs will also be able to get non-financial support extended by partner organizations, including marketing and bookkeeping. Regina Manyara reporting for Prime Edition.
Now that a roundup brings to a close business news for tonight. Up next is Mboya with the sports update for tonight. Have a good night. Tomorrow is another day.
Well, 19 days remaining to the Qatar 2022 FIFA World Cup. My name is Mboya again. I say that because I'm sitting in for Richard Munga. Let's look at the day's sports. Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba has issued stern warning to athletes involved in doping. He says that the government will enact laws to elevate banned substances to the level of hard drugs so that those found guilty of doping will be treated as drug smugglers. Namwamba urged sportsmen and women to work hard and win clean.
Speaking during the launch of the Air Climate and Climate Action, Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba said Kenya has been losing credibility due to a few persons involved in doping, and the government will no longer tolerate doping among athletes.
I've just started our journey to COP27. And as you know, Athletics Kenya is a world leader on matters of climate action, sports and climate action. And so today we start officially our journey to go to be part of the global conversation in Egypt on how to make our environment better.
The CS also said is committed to increase sports fund to benefit athletes who are in need of training to further their talents.
We are going to be very, very harsh. We are going to make doping very expensive. And we are going to criminalize doping to levels you cannot imagine. Compete clean, because that is what sports people do. Compete clean and continue to protect Kenya's very fine image.
He also assured of finishing the construction of the Kipchoge Stadium and other stadiums around North Rift, saying sports facilities will facilitate in producing more sportsmen in the country. For Prime Edition Sports, I'm Daniel Mwendwa.
The mantra, work hard, win clean. Now, Kenya Lionesses head coach Dennis Mwanja is looking for more consistent face play as the Kenyan Chargers take on Uganda Wednesday in their Crunch Rugby African Women's Cup Pool B encounter at the One Kulukuku Stadium that's in Kampala, Uganda. Meanwhile, Vihiga Bullets appointed former Tusker Football Club and Bandari assistant coach Jojo Woko as their new head coach. The Ugandan coach signed a 2-year deal, which is expected to guide the side in finishing among the top 5 teams in the Kenya Premier League champion next season.
Is in the hands of Mary Liamba, who clears.
Kenya Lionesses head coach Dennis Mwanja is looking for more consistent face play as Kenya Chargers take on Uganda tomorrow in their Crunch Rugby Africa Women's Cup Pool B encounter at Wakulukunku Stadium in Kampala, Uganda. Mwanja stated by giving a quick overview of Saturday's 36-17 win over Zambia, saying the team played in a wrong territory and the kicking was not tactical. Uganda's Lady Crane lay in on weight on Wednesday, and the former Kenya Sevens international said they have adjusted their set piece and have got clarity of the attacking and defensive structure. The Lionesses lead Pool B on 5 points, while Uganda are on 4 points. The winners of clash between Kenya and host Uganda will not only win Pool B competition, but will also qualify for next year's Rugby Africa Cup, which serves as qualifier for inaugural World Women's 15 World Cup in 2023. Meanwhile, Vihiga Bullets have appointed former Tusker FC and Bandari assistant coach Jojo Wako as their new head coach. Owako succeeds Abdallah Juma, who has been promoted as technical chief position. The Ugandan coach signed 2 years deal today as he expected to guide the side finishing among the top 5 teams in the Kenya Premier League campaign next season. Owako deputized Paul Nkata at Tusker in 2016 before joining coastal side Bandari in 2017, helping them win Kesoso tournament unbeaten. King Orimwangi for Prime Edition Sports.
Juventus midfielder Paul Pogba is the latest player set to miss France's World Cup campaign as he continues his recovery from a knee operation. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Association of Football says that they will write a letter to FIFA requesting Iran to be banned from the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Why? Systemic human rights violation. The 2022 World Cup finals kick off on the 20th of next month in Qatar and will be broadcast live on KBC Channel 1 and all KBC's radio stations. World Cup iko hapa.
The Juventus midfielder lifted the trophy with his country in 2018, scoring the third goal in their 4-2